Hey, your viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist, and welcome back to Say Being Hunted, episode 556 now, I do believe. So, we're on the East Island of this map, 3 more device pieces to find, and then technically, I've actually done this map, and I've completed another little default playthrough of the game and all that. So, I hope you guys out there, of course, are all doing absolutely fine. I would hope, anyway. So, you know, it's just a nice little sort of Wednesday evening as I record this. Technically, I'm still on Easter leave at the moment. Still got a few days left of it, so that's good. I mean, I've just been having a fairly chill out last couple of days, to be honest. Just basically reading and, playing some of my games, recording some stuff to go out on the channel, just to, start replenishing my upload queue and all that after I went up north again to visit friends and family, which I talked about obviously last episode. So, just thought it would be nice to sit down, do a nice sedate little Sir episode, because it's 8 o'clock in the evening as I want to record this. And I think to myself, you know what, record a nice little, 15-20 minute video. I think that'll do just fine. There's a smoke column over here, so it's probably robots. Actually, I don't hear any. Oh no, never mind. There we go. Oh, great. There's a giant friggin' rider over there. Of course there is. Right, how are we going to do this? What is the best way to do this, in fact? To maybe put a train over here, perhaps? Will they hear it from over there, though? That's the question. What if I just tunk it down there? Oh yeah, they can hear it. Let's go. Oh god, that was birds that they just heard, and they're now coming in this direction. That's not what I want at all. Don't do that. Oh god, and one of them's running back towards the friggin' device piece. No, he's going way towards it now. Alright, you just stay over there. Okay, this worked out better than actually I thought it would, in all honesty. I thought it was all going to go wrong. It was all going to go T-ats up. But no, it didn't, fortunately. Huh, there we go, got it. Oh, wait, did they? No. I thought for a second they'd seen me, but luckily they haven't. Alright. So, in scientific news, ladies and gentlemen, this is a random digression, but then again, they always are in these podcast-style episodes. Remember that news that came out recently about, what was it? It was like a new type of fish that had been discovered in the Pacific. It was like the deepest, well, it was the deepest depth at which a fish had ever been found. It was like this kind of blobfish-looking thing. But that basically occurred, a few days ago, as of when I record this. Well, I say a few days ago, more like a week or two ago. But just got me kind of reminiscing, really, about how much I find the ocean to be a fascinating subject. Thing is, little sort of fact about me. When I was a kid, this was long before I ever had any idea about going into academia as a career, but as a kid, I used to entertain sort of kind of, how should I describe them, kind of very vague ideas that when I grew up I wanted to be a marine biologist. I mean, everyone when they're a kid has things they want to be when they grow up, and some of them are pretty ridiculous. You get kids who sit there and say, I want to be a secret agent, I want to be a wizard, I want to be a princess. It's like, yeah, you're never going to be any of those things, kid. Get realistic dreams. And I've had my share of crazy things that I dreamt of being when I was a kid. Like, for example, when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was massively into pirates and things like that. At one point I wanted to be a pirate when I was a kid, as adorable as that is. But yeah, I mean, when I was a little bit older as a kid, so probably maybe about in the years leading up to the age of 10, maybe just after as well, when I was about 11, 12 or whatever, I did at one time want to be a marine biologist, because I had these sort of grandiose images in my head of it being all sort of, for example, going down in little submersibles on deep sea adventures, discovering new creatures, things like that. Of course, it's not really what it's actually like. It's a lot of laboratory work, very laborious and rigorous, going through just basically samples and bits of fish and all that, identifying species and whatever else have you. But of course, it got me thinking about that when I was a kid, and how I wanted to be that growing up. Oh god, is this another fucking... It's another device piece that I can't technically actually get my hands on because it's inside the freaking rock. That's the second time this has happened now, and it's happened Very close to the end game. Well, isn't that fucking lovely? We have a map that we technically can't complete, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy. It happens, but what can you do? And this isn't even a customised, really, well, isn't even a particularly customised map as far as I remember. I'm pretty sure I just set the biomes to each of the defaults and then just let it generate normally. Well, never mind. Okay, well, this will just be a podcast style episode and then we'll probably have to go on to a new map after this. But never mind. But yeah, I was just saying, as a kid, I always wanted to be a marine biologist. Because the thing is, when I was a very little kid, I was always interested in pirates and I had books about pirates, things like that. Then as I got older, it became more sort of books about the sea, about sea life, about shipwreck hunting, things like this. All kinds of stuff. And truth is, my interest in the maritime has persisted right into my adulthood, basically. The only reason I never actually pursued marine biology as a career is because if you look back over my, my high school life, at my high school we had obviously the 3 science subjects, chemistry, biology, physics. And I was always good at biology. That was definitely my strongest science subject. But the problem was, I wasn't as good at the other sciences. So, for example, I wasn't the best at physics, for instance. Physics to me, I don't know, physics was always a fucking mystery to me. I could never sort of get my head around it. It just wasn't my subject. I don't know if maybe that's just because maybe, I don't know, maybe it was just a reflection of maybe the teacher just didn't really enthuse me on the subject. Anything like that. Maybe just, maybe I was just in sort of the wrong set group for it. I don't know. But that's the thing, because obviously, at high school level, they tend to divide students up by ability into different groups. And the thing is, I was in the top set across all 3 of the science subjects, when really, I probably shouldn't have been. It was, I was in a class where the subject was being pitched at too high a level for me. And I think the only reason I got into that top set for science was because I was good at biology. I was just disproportionately good at that one. But chemistry and physics, I was sort of less good at. Physics in particular. I don't know. I was never keen on it. But, yeah, it's just my high school had this really weird way back in the day of setting kids for science at GCSE level. So once you're in sort of year 10, 11, so about ages 15, 16. So it was like you didn't necessarily need to be good at all the sciences to be in the top set. You just needed to be good at... If you were disproportionately good at one of them, I suppose it just ended up inflating your kind of statistics a bit, and as a result they put you into the top set. So, as a kid, I learned very quickly that if I was going to do marine biology as a career path, not only would I need biology qualifications at A level and beyond, I would probably also need qualifications in another scientific subject, probably chemistry, in order to actually be able to do things like A level biology in the first place. So when I learned that kind of put paid to that dream. But like I said, the interest in the maritime never faded. It persisted into adulthood, and it's quite a multifaceted interest. I still have interest in types of marine life, things like that, but I also have interest in things like maritime and naval history, and modern maritime and naval affairs, and whatever else have you. It's one of the reasons why, as an academic, one of my sort of fields of interest essentially is all things to do with things like maritime security and maritime strategy and things like that. And it's also why, as somebody who plays video games on YouTube for a hobby, I actually really do like games that are set in the maritime environment. So, you remember Absu, for instance? That game that I played, I did about 5 episodes on it quite a while ago. That was definitely a good game, and I really enjoyed that one. I would love to see a game like that that's fully fleshed out and made even bigger. But yes, sea life, ladies and gentlemen. I've not been to a good sea life centre for a while. I remember when I was a kid, obviously living back up in the north of England, the closest one I had was the one at Blackpool. I can sort of vaguely recall that, but then again, that was years ago when I last went there, so I don't remember it particularly well. So who knows, maybe a aquarium trip is on the cards at some point in the hopefully not too distant future. if I can discover where there is one close to me, if there's an aquarium or a sea life centre somewhere. Then again, having said that, I don't know. Are sea life centres and aquariums a bit cruel? Because it's like, you know, keeping small animals kind of bottled up in a very enclosed space. I know that obviously places like SeaWorld in America are quite controversial because of the fact that you're keeping huge animals like killer whales and dolphins, which really need the open ocean. Instead, you're keeping them just sort of confined into tiny little tanks and aquariums where they could basically go crazy because they just don't have the mental stimulation of the open ocean or anything like that. I mean, things that, you know, personally I disagree with things like SeaWorld personally on that basis, because I think that ethically they're problematic and all that. But, you know, I was just sort of wondering, what about aquaria where you have much smaller sea life? Is that as cruel? I imagine it probably is. You see, that now makes me sort of in two minds now about wanting to actually go and visit an aquarium or a sea life centre. But yes, like I say though, I do have vague recollections of the sea life centre in Blackpool. I have vague recollections of like blue-spotted stingrays, or just the more generic stingray tank. They were weird creatures with the stingrays. I seem to have recollections of them being really docile. And things like the top of their tank was open, so you could just like stand there and look in. And they would swim pretty close to the edge of the tank, sort of like rolling around in the water, which is kind of weird. Because, you know, certain types of marine animal, particularly things like cephalopods, you know, they're known to be quite intelligent, especially like octopi, for instance. But I always wondered, actually, what about like stingrays and creatures like that? Stingrays and manta rays, what's their level of intelligence? Maybe that's a subject for me to read about, who knows? But, you know, speaking of reading and all that, whilst I was actually back up north, sorry, this is veering away a bit. This is still on the sort of broadly maritime subject, but it's getting away from sea life now towards something else. While I was actually back up north, visiting friends and family, you know, we had a sort of morning out in Lancaster, because it's a bit of a tradition to do that, because, you know, it was a city that I've been to many times in my youth. It was the city where, you know, I went to university to do my undergraduate, my postgraduate, and then my PhD. And so it's good to, you know, go out to it every time I'm back up north. You know, go with some members of family, have a coffee at one of the little cafe bars, lounges in the centre of town. Our favourite one at the moment is Gallico's on Market Street. Is it Market Street? Yeah, it's Market Street. Or is it? Yeah, Market Street going up towards the Market Square in front of the City Museum. Just a nice little coffee bar to have a drink in the morning, go for a cup of tea and some toast or something like that. But, you know, whilst I was up at Lancaster during my time up in the north, I always like to swing by Waterstones, for instance, see if I can pick up some new reading material. So whether that's just some nice books, whether non-fiction or fiction, or maybe even check out the manga section, see if they've got anything interesting. I actually bought a few books while I was up there. And one of them was a book called Sea People by Christina Thompson. It's a non-fiction book, it's a history book, but it's basically about the history of sort of navigation in the Pacific. I think, by the looks of it, it's basically about sort of Polynesian civilization. And that's the thing, you know, over 1,000 years ago, there were Polynesian native civilizations in the Pacific that, you know, they expanded right across the freaking expanse of the Pacific to all the small islands. And, you know, they didn't have, you know, particularly sophisticated technology to enable them to do so, but they did it, which is a fascinating subject. And the thing is, like, the Pacific region, the Pacific Ocean, is one of those regions which it's perhaps hard to really appreciate just how big it actually is when you just look at it on a standard 2D Mercator map. But the thing about it is, you know, from what I understand, if, for example, you were on a satellite orbiting the Earth and you were looking down at the Pacific Ocean, at its widest point, it is so wide that you would not be able to see it in its entirety because it covers almost like 180 degrees of the globe. That's how big it actually is. And that, I think, truly gives you a sense of scale of it. Because that's the thing about the 2D, you know, the traditional 2D Mercator map. What you got to understand about that map is it was originally designed for use by sailors. navigating the ocean hundreds of years ago. So as a result, the lines on it have to sort of match up, and the problem becomes, as a result, that some of the land masses depicted on it are actually kind of distorted. They don't give a true sense of just how big they actually are, big or small they actually are in real life. There's actually a great sketch on this, a great clip from this, from that American drama, The West Wing, where several, White House staffers are listening to a bunch of lobbyists who are lobbying for the Mercator map to be replaced in the American educational curriculum by an alternate map that actually gives a more realistic depiction of the world. And it just gives you a sense of scale, because it's like on a standard Mercator map, Greenland looks huge, and Africa as a continent only looks a little bigger than it. But the reality actually is that Africa as a continent is fucking massive, and Greenland actually looks bigger than it is. Similarly, I think with the British Isles, on a standard Mercator map, I do believe that the British Isles actually look a lot larger than they actually are in real life. So it's always kind of fascinating, that, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I'll be looking forward to reading Sea People by Christina Thompson, among other books that I picked up. Alright, I'm thinking about to actually wrap this episode up here, because there's not really much else for me to do on this map, since I can't basically pick up that one remaining device piece. Doesn't that just suck really badly? I could have completed this whole map, but one device piece is basically inaccessible, which is really annoying, because I've managed to collect all the other ones. But what can you do? I suppose that's the mercy you're at when you're playing a game like this, where you have random terrain generation and all that. Well, there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed this map and my rambling conversations, my rambling one-sided conversations, that is. Facebook do links down below, along with the link to my propagandist channel for anyone interested, and if you enjoyed, a like is of course always appreciated. Of course, next episode we'll be moving on to a new map, and who knows what I'll be doing. Maybe just another standard playthrough, or maybe going on to a challenge. I don't know. I'll decide closer to the time. Other than that, goodbye, everybody. But yeah, I just remember the demo had sort of two particular levels to it. There was a level set on a tropical island. There was a level set in sort of an ancient mine or something, from what I remember. It's been a long, long time. It's been years, ladies and gentlemen. So yes, there will be things that I absolutely forgot. Yes, show me the trick. I think I've talked about a similar subject over on my Being Hunted series before. Platforming franchises that never survived, kind of the 90s. Because the thing is, oh god, looks like there's a flight area in this part. Yeah, I did a Being Hunted episode quite some time ago where I'd watched an Outside Extra video, which was literally about that subject, on platforming franchises that people maybe don't really remember.